We are back. PA High School Football Report. I should say, Dan, award-winning PA High School Football Report.
Yeah, we mentioned it at the end of the podcast after it sounded like we were ending. So I imagine most people just shut off the podcast before we started bragging about ourselves.
I always envision most people just going, you know what, that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. When they start hearing that tone of, and I think that's it. And they're like, all right, I'm switching over to a satellite radio or something.
We are now an award-winning podcast. I don't know, 3 or 4 times over, depending on which legitimate.
If anyone else has an award contest, we can enter and add another, very vague award that of podcasting. But
we still don't know who's actually giving out these awards or if they're legitimate. But we are a 3-time award-winning podcast. Welcome back to the report. It is a really, really dreary Wednesday afternoon here. In the Harrisburg Metroplex. But something that's always cheery is my colleague Dan Sostek. Dan, what are you griping about today? What's the problem of the day for you?
Well, I've been in a pretty bad mood the last couple of days because I was born in Newton, Massachusetts. I'm a grew up a Boston sports fan, and not enjoying the basketball right now.
Yeah,
seeing my guy Jason Tatum. The Achilles injuries are always like the worst ones because those are the ones that you just don't know if they're ever going to come back from. Because
I always envisioned, I always used to think the Achilles was worse than knees and everything which they are.
Yeah,
but I know KD came back and obviously was stuff, but it just seems to me like once that thing's repaired, you're never the same.
Yeah, the good thing about him is that he's not like. He was never a guy that used athleticism. It's kind of similar to Durant, where it's like they were much more. They just used the fact they were bigger than people to kind of shoot over. But it's just seeing any injury stinks, and it kind of put a damper on my week. And then of course you walk outside and it's like 40 days and 40 nights, just need an arc. It's one of those weeks, but I think we're going to get some sun soon. And it's also the Greek festival coming up. So I live, I'm not going to dox myself exactly, but I live near where the Greek festival takes place up in Camp Hill. So I will be partaking in that, and that's going to make my week.
Well, we have to ask now, what's your favorite, let's call it street Greek food?
Oh, I mean, is it boring to say, just a gyro? I can't even really pronounce it. Gyro.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I just, a classic either lamb or beef gyro. Just there's some, as a little kid, I used to really not like any sauce besides ketchup, like most other kids. But now it's like, if you don't have one of those, kind of thick yogurt-based kind of sauces on your sandwich, yeah. Without that, I'm not eating a sandwich. I'll just get like a bowl or something.
Well, you're older now. Your palate is more refined,
and it's just they make it so good there. You can just, especially if you live near there, you can smell those grills from a mile away, and the line stretch. I've never really seen just a random festival in a suburban kind of area fill up the way this Greek festival does it. It's every year, and then they have all the baked goods inside. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I enjoy
free advertisement for the Greek festival.
It's absolutely. Yeah. Maybe you walk around, somebody gives you one of those stuffed grapes.
I don't know what any of the names are for any of the things either. No. I'm just like, I remember that. That was good last year. And then
you try to spell tzatziki sauce. You can't do it. Yeah, it's impossible. No one can do it.
The puff pastries are really good too. It's just, I'm getting hungry talking about it.
I always, I'll give you a quick 30-second story. When in Eastern Michigan, our house was about 2 blocks off campus, and in between our house, affectionately known as the Pit for myriad reasons, and campus was a place called Yanni's Gyros.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right on Washtenaw Avenue, which actually Washtenaw, most people don't know, is Eastern Michigan and U of M, University of Michigan, are about 7 miles apart. And Washtenaw is actually like a road that actually hits both campuses. But anyway, $4.95 gyro special.
Oh,
huge gyro, huge chunks. They brought it off cut it off the spit. Then the circular whatever, and a big pile of French fries and a Greek salad. And and the joke was they were never skimpy on the feta.
Uh,
Feta was overflowing out of the container. And so for $4.95 for a college student, you know damn well it was at least 3 times a week we were eating at Yanni's.
Oh yeah, again, and because that's a full meal for $4.95.
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you're not paying. You're getting your bang for your buck, and that's kind of the appeal of a lot of these non-American foods. Is you can just have a full meal in the palm of your hands. That's why I went to Pittsburgh. Permane Brothers kind of like that's the American version.
That's exactly why they did it. Absolutely, yeah, single hand. But it was a great meal, and they were open till 2 in the morning, so you could go there at any time. It was fabulous. All right, let's shift gears here a little bit before we actually get talking, about football, which the award-winning podcast is all about here.
Tangentially.
Right, that's a report. Let's get through a couple of housekeeping items before we chat All-Star football on deck. And there's a lot of All-Star football coming up for us. Of course, we're talking about the annual Big 33 Classic. Now about a week away from, quote-unquote, the Super Bowl of high school football. I don't know when it was named that, but apparently that is the moniker for an All-Star game in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I love the Big 33. It's an awesome event.
Yes.
I do feel the more accurate comparison is the Pro Bowl. Like, at least the Pro Bowl, the Sean Taylor era, not what it currently is, where it's literally like a carnival game.
Flag football, basically. Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like the Super Bowl is just the PIA championships. It's kind of hard not to be because the Super Bowl is playing for championship. But we'll let them have a bit. And they do have the Super Bowl streak, so they kind of a big part of the branding.
That's what it refers. Right. That's what it refers to.
Yeah.
So we get it. I get it. But,
and I guess the other reason is it's like a week-long event thing, and like the Super Bowl.
Well, that's true too. Good point. They used to spend a week in, week leading up in the Pro Bowl too, but now they just show up to like Orlando, right?
Yeah, and then they play rock, paper, scissors or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
I missed the old Pro Bowl. Every Pro Bowl, you get the clip circulating of Sean Taylor just lighting someone up in the game, and I think that was when they decided, all right, we can't let some of these guys with the screw loose, keep playing this. We're gonna be missing stars the whole year. So, but the Big 33 tends to be much more competitive than what we get in Honolulu.
Yes, absolutely. All right, first order of business before we get to some actual football talk. I think you'll join me, Dan, in celebrating a couple of recent John Travers Award champions.
Oh, yeah.
A chance to have the banquet here, even though both winners in Lower Dolphins, Ashley Economopoulos and East Pennsboro Steel Bear are soccer standouts.
They probably both could have played football.
We absolutely.
Yeah.
I put them both. We have Steel Bear 6'5".
Yeah.
You put him in the slot. That's damage.
Yeah.
That's a lot of damage. I feel like Ashley could play pretty much anywhere.
Yeah. Obviously the easy comp is kicker, right? Yeah, we already saw Anna Lehman do that, but
yes,
I will cover a lot of those Lower Dolphins soccer games. I think she could hold her own, at some of the other
absolutely
players. So
absolutely,
that's always one of my favorite days of the year working with that committee, because it does really remind you that these kids are also they're still going to school every day, and that's a big part of the equation. It's a big part of how a lot of these kids find their future homes. So two really deserving candidates. Everybody, all the 10 finalists and the 33 nominees were all super deserving. So anyone who was in that banquet hall was a winner. We had Nolan Bazolka there. Josh Smith was there as well. A couple of football.
We had 3 football people, right? If you count Anna Lehman.
Yeah.
And Noah Joy, obviously, and All-State. Camp Hill, who's going to go to Campbell to wrestle.
Yeah.
And of course, you mentioned Josh Smith at Mechanicsburg, All-State wideout. Oh, by the way, he's going to go to Princeton.
Yeah.
So, and Anna Lehman is probably going to, we'll probably see her in the heptathlon in the 28 Olympics. I wouldn't put it past her. I don't care. Listen, I don't care how much plus money you're getting. I'm not betting against her.
No.
Yeah. Obviously, she kicked for the Polar Bears. So,
yeah. I think any of those kids in that room you kind of really can't bet against, because they're a lot better at doing stuff than most people.
Well, it's too, like, you look at the schools that they're going to. Jordan Byers, West Perry, one of the best field hockey players in the country, going to Iowa. Siena, and I'm proud of myself that I could say Kira Liaison from Trinity is going to Syracuse lacrosse.
You got her name, but mixed up Syracuse.
What did I say? I said
Syracuse.
Oh, okay. My bad. Syracuse lacrosse. And the other finalist, Hadley Hoffsmith from Palmyra, is going to Penn State to play field hockey.
That's pretty good.
So, and Economopoulos, obviously, is an Old Dominion recruit. And Steel Bears are going to play at West Virginia. Their soccer careers, too. Sam Culp was another finalist from Redland. RPI Wrestling. Is that correct, Dan?
Yeah. I don't know if we got confirmation he's going to wrestle there. I assume so, but
yeah,
I don't know if they have a wrestling program. I have to look that up. So,
yeah, and Tyler Morrison, unbelievable wrestler from West Perry as well, among the male finalists. We had an unbelievable list, and the bar keeps going higher and higher for this thing. So it was a great day with some great athletes, and you mentioned two of the nominees who were very impressive as well. The selection process, the committee, sort of agonizes, and we fight over finalists, and then obviously we do several rounds of voting sometimes when we're not quite sure. We enjoyed.
I think everyone understands. It's a pretty tough field to narrow down.
Yeah. I think if we did like 5 rounds of voting, we'd probably come up with 5 different, things. It's a special award. 44 years now that award has been given out. So we'll hit a milestone next year. That'll be fun. All right, Dan, let's turn to football a little bit. You can now read about Gary Carter on PennLive. Carter is now in charge of Chambersburg's football program. And I have to say, it was a good conversation with Coach, longtime football assistant. He worked under Mark Luther, who resigned. Luther resigned after the 2024 season in November.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Mark. Yes. I've covered, that was my first job out of college, just covering the Chambersburg Public Opinion. He was coach then. He's coach all throughout until now. Always a really, upstanding guy, great to talk to after games, win or loss. That's not an easy job back in Chambersburg. There's a lot of talent there, but there's also a lot of, there's a lot of developmental challenges in terms of building out a full roster. Yep. And he had a couple seasons there where it looked like, he was starting to build things up. They had the one year where they made the playoffs with a Brady Stumbaugh quarterback. Mark obviously saw all his kids go through that program. They're all really, really good players. A lot of really good kickers who also
really good kickers
found ways to, contribute as wide receivers too. I just want to give a shout out to Mark Luther because he was always really good to me, and I'm happy he gets to step away. Probably enjoy watching his kids now play at the next level.
What I was always impressed with Mark Luther is I'm not sure that I covered a Chambersburg game where they won. Now there were mostly games that they weren't expected to win.
Yeah, it was like
they were competitive. They were competitive as hell, and just a couple of things. In football, the margin for error is very finite. It's very, and he was always so not only enthusiastic about his program, but he was always so complimentary of everyone else too. And every time we called him, every time we needed something from him or asked, he was always got back to you. He brought his squads to the media day every year, even though it's an hour and a 20-minute drive, up and back. I really respect coaches who do that. The kids are enthusiastic to play for him. And that's not always the case everywhere. We see it, time and time again. And it's just a good overall guy. I think a good leader of young men. I thought the world of Mark Luther, and obviously still do. So whatever he's going to get himself into, he'll have fun doing it. That's for sure. I'm always a little reserved, Dan, when I talk to a new head coach, and, you always hear the word culture. Kind of change culture. But I like what Coach Carter, he took a little different approach in just wanting to kind of first establish that rapport with the kids, be accessible, open the weight room at all hours, return to some of that old school processes that have kind of stood the test of time, get in the weight room, get stronger, build it through that avenue, build it through team sort of building exercises and fundraising efforts and things like that, which he's been into now for 6 to 8 weeks, being on the job. So, and in this case too, to kind of stand alone and be competitive in the Commonwealth, which I think alongside the EPC are the two best divisions in football, in Pennsylvania football, and the most grueling to compete in. So obviously, Coach Carter's done a
I'm
really
looking it up, and he was a quarterback for Chambersburg in the late '80s and went 11-0 with the Trojans playing quarterback. But I mean, so if you're going to bring someone in to head the program, pretty good guy to kind of try to bring Chambersburg back to being a, because it used to kind of be more of that. Hey, every few years they're going to be a really good team, and obviously the landscape has changed dramatically, and now they have to deal with Bishop McDevitt in their Division II. I mean, that Commonwealth division is like I've always said. I have wondered if those Chambersburg teams were playing in any other division, what kind of the top, because they've always had good athletes there. It's just about filling out the roster. So I'm excited to see because that's a fan base there too. That community is dying for good football. I don't want to compare it to the Pittsburgh Pirates because the Pirates are more kind of the ownership's fault, but it's kind of like that, right? Where it's when the Pirates fans got a taste of being a playoff team in 2013, they packed that place and it was an impossible place to play. And I feel like the lovely Trojan Stadium could be exactly like that if they get that program back running. So excited to see what Gary can do.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And like I said, he's jumped in with both feet so far in the last 6-8 weeks, and he's doing a good job. So we wish him the best. I will say this, Dan, before we move on, a lot of kids are out. He had a weight room session 2 weeks ago. He said there were 95 kids there, so that's pretty good. That's not showing up for camp with 95. That's a weight room session in in the middle of March. So that's pretty impressive. So we wish him the best. Okay, Dan, last week we tore through the rosters of the upcoming East-West games. They are now days away. Sunday at Chapman Field. This was coming out. This pod will come out on Thursday. So a few days before you can get your tickets, get out to Chapman Field at Cumberland Valley, noon and 5 o'clock. Small school game is at noon. Big school game, which is classes 6A, 5A, and 4A. That is at 5 p.m. We have a lot of guys from the Mid-Penn in the big school game, and probably about, I don't know, six or maybe 5 or 6 in the AA.
Yeah,
a couple from Steel High, a trio from a couple from Camp Hill. So that'll be fun for us. So we're gonna move on to the big show, Big 33 Classic, which is May 25th, Sunday at Chapman Field, and we thought we'd pick our 5 most intriguing players to watch. These are just personal picks. We're not ranking these guys or anything like that, but just guys that when we went through the East-West rosters, guys that we really want to see in that game. And we're going to do the same thing here with the Big 33. So let's start with you and tell me somebody you're really looking forward to seeing.
First one, I'm kind of taking some low-hanging fruit here, but the Jabri Wallace Coleman is, obviously we've watched this kid for a long time at Emotep Charter. They're always up in Cumberland Valley. I think he might have even been up in Hershey, right? I think he might have been on that team back in when they played Mount Lebanon, right? Was it Mount Lebanon or Penn Trafford?
Penn Trafford.
Yeah, Penn Trafford. And he's just been as explosive of a back as you'll see. Obviously he's going to a loaded Penn State running back room with guys, guys like Nick Singleton and Katron Allen and Tyke Hayes and then Messiah Mickens in the future. But he's just a special football player. We've seen it for 4 years. Wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of, we'll see, because sometimes those bigger name guys don't want the huge reps in these games. But if he does get a ton of reps, I imagine he'll kind of have a standout game. So I'm just excited to get, one more taste of Jabri Wallace Coleman at the high school level.
Yeah, he's impressive. Explosive, all those things you want out of a running back.
210 as a high school senior is pretty.
And and every time I've seen him live too, I've gotten a chance to see him live a couple of times too. I didn't think he was that big.
Yeah,
I didn't think he was 6 foot. Because when he hits the hole, it's like he's 5'2".
Yeah,
like he makes himself small, and then all of a sudden when he comes out the other end, it's just this explosive, just dynamic athlete.
Yeah,
coming into second level. So he's a fun one, a really fun one to watch. My first guy is, I tend to stick, I guess during the season, and see if you agree with me on this. The offensive guys get all the stats, get all the headlines, so I tend to kind of want to watch just kind of put my eyes on a couple defenders. Although I will talk about the QBs as well. But so Khalid Bueno is a guy.
Yeah, I was circling.
Yeah, for Martin Luther King. He's 6'2" linebacker for Martin Luther King. I believe Danny's Stony Brook recruit. I believe. And I have not seen him live, but I've seen film, plenty of highlights from him. And I am so impressed with how he plays. I don't want to say old school kind of linebacker, but I think he has those kind of instincts.
Yeah.
He is forever around the ball, and he shoots gaps, and he's faster than you think, and he just makes plays. I mean, I don't know, past couple of years, he's been over 100 and I don't know, probably 120, 130 tackles for the last couple of years. He's just an impressive football player. And I will say Stony Brook got a absolute dynamic kid in Bueno. So he's a guy on defense that I really like to watch. I typically do like to watch the linebackers because, they've been in the PA Maryland rivalry. Obviously, PA's going for 5 straight, I believe.
Yeah.
This year's maybe 6, but the COVID year, obviously, they didn't have it. So it may be going for 6 straight. But typically, it's been very difficult for Maryland to run the football against PA. And obviously, that has a lot to do with the guys up front, and it has a lot to do with the front 7, basically. You count the linebackers. So I'm curious to see if Maryland has a bit more success, other than basically the quarterback getting flushed out, and and making some progress with their legs. So that'll be my number one guy to look at.
All right, I'm going. It's always kind of tough for us to pick Maryland guys, usually, right? Because we're not overly familiar with them. But we do have a guy here that we are sort of familiar with in kind of a roundabout way, and that's Camden Laudenslager, who is a Harrisburg area native. I believe he was in the Central Dauphin School District for a little bit, and has kind of gone the prep route and everything. Was originally committed to North Carolina. I believe he's now committed to Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, just the story itself is super interesting, right? He's a PA native that is now at McDonough and is playing on Team Maryland. And I'm sure he grew up with a lot of these kids, right? If you're from first off, there's a Central Dauphin kid on the PA team, and Zach Coleman. Guys like Nolan Bazolka, I'm sure he knows all these kids just from growing up playing Pee Wee with them. So to kind of get the line up against them one more time, I think ESPN has him as the number 35 recruit in Maryland. So yeah, I just think that's going to be a super cool storyline to watch. I'm sure he's going to have a lot of family members at the game too. So a kind of a homecoming game for a kid that used to be in the Central Dauphin program.
Yeah, for sure. I talked a little bit about this guy last week, and Christian Palmer, the cornerback for Roman Catholic. It was interesting to me. I got a chance to talk to him at practice 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, and about him returning to Chapman Field. Obviously, Roman Catholic was on the wrong side of that 34-31 OT game with Bishop McDevitt in the 5A final. And Roman's got a couple guys on this squad for PA. Obviously, Lazarius Toombs, the defensive end, really talented kid, is among them for Roman Catholic. I'm striking out. Michael Ford is also on this, a DT from Roman Catholic. So it was interesting to me what it was like for them, what it was kind of like for them. And again, this was just practice, but they were at Chapman Field to kind of be back there again and have the chance to sort of end their careers on the same field where they lost in overtime. Just heartbreaking. You know what I mean? Like you lose 28-0, that's one thing. But, when you get to OT and you lose on, quite frankly, maybe the ugliest field goal to ever go through the uprights. The ball was tipped. I get it. But, to lose that way it's just so heartbreaking. But he's such a versatile guy. I mentioned the fact that they'll probably use him on offense, maybe a couple of plays as well. We'll talk about a change that was made here in a second. So maybe they won't need him as much on the offensive side, but he was all for playing both ways in this one, any chance he got. So Palmer's a kid too that I don't know right now if he is actually committed yet or has signed yet with anyone. I'm not quite sure. I know as a practice, I didn't think he was.
He's committed to Monmouth.
Monmouth. Okay, there you go.
Yep.
Good for him. Well, Monmouth, you're getting a steal too because this kid's really, really good. Yep. So Palmer's another guy I'll have my eye on.
All right, I'm going kind of back to the well here, back to, and I'm going with one of my guy, I guess, guy that's headed to my alma mater, and that's Shep Turk.
Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, offensive lineman. Obviously, I know a lot of people from Western PA, and they all rave about this kid, not just as a football player. He's a great wrestler, too. I mean, if your name's Shep Turk, you kind of have to be kind of a tough, gritty offensive lineman. Yep. And everyone just says that about this kid. Obviously, Thomas Jefferson, they were upset by Lampeter Strasburg in the playoffs this year, but they had a fantastic season this year. And I think that he was obviously a huge part of it, along with his teammate who's also on the team, Justin Schmidt. He's just there's been a lot of talk kind of in the Pitt Twitter sphere because of Michael Kadick kind of making some comments about how Pitt didn't recruit him till he was 3 months from committing or whatever, and that Pitt doesn't do enough in the WPIAL. But they do still get some local guys that turn out to be pretty solid players. They got guys like Sean Fitzsimmons, who I think is going to have a big year. I forget if he played in the Big 33 or not. I feel like I don't remember, but Devin Danielson, I think, is another guy. I think he might have been a Thomas Jefferson guy too. But Shep Turk feels to me like a guy that's going to be a next level contributor, and I'm excited to watch him go up against this Maryland team.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to stick with a mid-pen guy just because I think he's been, we advertised him quite a bit and promoted his worth to State College, and that's Michael Gall.
Yeah.
Again, another linebacker, surprise, surprise. But, Gall's a kid, and I don't want this to come up the in a bad way, but, not the fastest linebacker. Not the biggest linebacker, but as far as instincts for the position, I think, you'd have a tough time finding somebody else in PA, at least in this class, that just has a knack for playing linebacker, just has a knack for it. He always seems like he's in the right position. He's the perfect guy to call defensive alignments. He's a leader. He's been really, really consistent. If you need to plug in a fullback, he's your guy, because obviously he's tremendous when he gets the ball in those short yardage situations. So I think he's just had a really, really strong career. I think it's the perfect way for him to cap it off. And obviously he's moving on to the next level to play. So, this is really a perfect sort of ending, I think, for Michael Gall, or at least, certainly deserving ending for him to play in this game.
All right. Yeah, great pick. He was always just so fun to watch. I'm sticking on the offensive line, and I'm going back to Maryland because nice. I'm going with a kid named Skylar Harvey, and I've just got a couple things to say that'll kind of sell you on him. 6'7", 350 pounds.
Yes.
He's committed to Syracuse. He's a 3-star recruit. But anytime you get a Division I player with those type of dimensions kind of in this game, it's always someone that you're going to want to see how they handle kind of playing an all-star game. Because sometimes, kids like that, they beat up on kind of the weaker competition, then they get the guys that can really move. And then, they kind of get beat because they don't have the foot speed. They don't have kind of the technique, and they just kind of rely on their sheer size. Obviously, Syracuse thinks a lot of them. Syracuse has been hot on that recruiting trail with Fran Brown as a head coach. So I'm excited to just see. You don't get too many high school kids with those dimensions. So I don't know too much about him. I haven't watched any of his film, but just based on the bio and based on the pedigree, I want to see how he does against Team PA. So I'll be watching out for him.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah,
this guy I did mention last week too. It's Pope John Paul's the second wide receiver in Braden Reed. I'm not going to say he's going to have a Tyler Boyd kind of big 33. Or
I don't think anyone's going to have that.
I'll just say that one lives on in the infamy what Tyler Boyd did in that game. But I will say this, and I think I said this last week too. They are going to try to get number 20 the ball in myriad ways. And most likely, it would not surprise me if the first play from scrimmage was just go. Just send him and chuck it. I don't care. I don't know if it's Walls, the quarterback, or Madden Patrick, a quarterback. It may just be, let's just see if he can outrun the coverage because he's really, really fast. And all the coaches fell in love with him. The coaches didn't see him before, all of them fell in love with him at practice. They could not believe how fast this kid was. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't see his numbers. You didn't see, but he was so impressive. So he's a guy to keep an eye out. And if you're Maryland, I don't think it's going to be any surprise. You better cover number 20. Maybe put 2 on him. I'm saying.
All right, I'm going my 5th and final guy. I'm going with a wide receiver too, and I'm going with one that we got to see at the end of last year. And I remember seeing the kid on the field. I wasn't super familiar with him. I knew he was a top prospect. But when I saw him on the field, I was like, this kid looks like an NFL player already.
Mm-hmm.
He was originally committed to West Virginia. With the coaching changes everything. I think he's now committed to Purdue. I'm going with Jaleel Hall from Bonner Prendy, just because that kid has he has the frame. He might end up moving to tight end, I think, just based on that. He's just so big. But he made a couple plays in that state championship game that you kind of saw the flashes of, a potential, just when you have that frame and that movement ability, you have a chance at the very least getting into NFL camps. And I'm just excited to see, another game of that kid in action, especially with his recruitment all settled. That always stinks when the kid senior year, they switch coaches and you have to kind of make a real adult decision at the age of 18 as if, you want to stick with the school, but not the coach, or you want to find a program that fits you better. And he's now going to Purdue. But that whole Bonner Prendy team was so impressive this year.
They were.
They were a fun team to watch. They were just like a machine. So I'm excited to see Jaleel Hall one more time.
Yeah, Hall was my 5th guy. You took him, but you know what? We got to talk about a local kid. Was not on the original Big 33 roster, Santana Young, CDE wideout, all-state season. So it looks like he may have been promoted and is now on the Big 33 roster. I did mention last week that Ty Salazar from State College had opted out, but he still remains on the roster, at least on the website. So we will check with that and get you Santana Young status. But it looks like Tanny Young, which he doesn't like, does he?
He's one of those kids that won't give you the straight answer of what he prefers.
Well, when he was at Trinity, he was a transfer from Trinity. He was Tanny Young for 3 years. And then obviously transferred to CD.
So here's actually the story. I remember I had to do my first year here, I had to do the Capital Division previews or whatever. And I sent out, the survey, got it back from then coach Jordan Hill. He had written that, one of our freshmen that could make an impact is Santana Young. And then 2 years later, I'm like, well, I haven't seen this Santana Young kid at all, but I keep seeing Tanny Young. And in my head, I never put it together that it was the same kid because it was like Tanny's a little further away from Santana. But then all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, oh, that's the same kid that he had hyped up. So it turns out he wasn't blowing smoke and he actually was a heck of a football player.
Exactly.
And he was so fun to watch this year. Switching offenses to that CD East offense, getting that rapport with Damage. He was just the guy that every single game you could count on for 100 yards. He just got open and parlayed it to FCS scholarship.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's called an old guy moment, Dan, when you do that.
Yeah.
Put those things together.
When you're
you're 30 now. You got to have some of those moving forward. Just get ready for them.
Yeah.
Get ready for them. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the report. Obviously, Big 33, May 25th. 7:30 p.m. kickoff at Chapman Field at Cumberland Valley. You can visit big33.org to buy your tickets. There's all kind of festival things and more street food. I don't know if they're going to have any Greek treats for you, Dan.
I eat anything though
around the yard, but we'll try to get a Euro truck there for you.
Yeah,
and we'll go from there. So join us next week. Thanks for listening, and for Dan Sostek, Eric Epler. Have a good week.